الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد.
With the name of God, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer. All praises due to the one who taught with a pen, taught humanity that which they did not know, and may blessings and peace be upon the Prophet Muhammad and his family. We seek refuge in God from Shaitan, the accursed. In the name of God, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer, say He is Allah, one, Allah, the everlasting refuge. He begets not, nor is begotten, and there is nothing that is comparable to Him. O you who believe, be conscious of God in a way that affects your outward behavior, in a way that is recognizing who Allah is, who the one is that you're remembering and being conscious of. And do not pass from this world, this dunya, this planet Earth, except in a state where you're striving to be in a surrender to the divine reality. For those of you who don't know anything about me, I recognize about half of you. I've been a convert to Islam for about 25 years now. Married into an Indian Muslim family for about 19 years, coming on 19 years now. I've lived here in Oakland for the last 5 years. I've probably been here 15 to 20 times to give the Jummah, and always at the invitation of the Board of Trustees for this masjid. This masjid was, started, as I understand, in the mid-90s, and has served a diverse community in diverse ways over the years, but the core of the community are immigrants from the Islamic Republic of Iran, and their families, and their children and their grandchildren, although that is usually not, the majority of attendance here at Salat al-Jummah, but at other events. When we gather for Salat al-Jummah, it is important for us to always be brought back to a perspective on why we come for Jummah. Most likely, this group of individuals that is gathered here right now will never be gathered in a room together again, just us. It is in Allah's infinite wisdom, Allah's decree, that we would all be here today. I didn't intend to be here, but I was asked yesterday or the day before to be here, and I responded to that call, and each of you have your own reasons for attending. But at the core of it is the mission and the message of the Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. May blessings and peace be upon him and his family. When you study the history of Salat al-Jummah in our community, there are many wonderful and exciting and interesting and challenging things to say. One of the most striking of all is that in Surah al-Jummah itself, at the end of the chapter, so this is the fundamental textual basis of why we have the Salat al-Jummah, this last few verses of the chapter of Jummah in the Quran. It mentions that the Prophet himself, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, was standing giving the khutbah, and some of his followers got up and walked out because there was a caravan coming, and they wanted to do business. Now, I've literally never heard this discussed in 25 years in the Jummah khutbah. It is inconceivable to us that if the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was here on planet Earth right now, no matter where in the world he gave the Jummah khutbah, that millions upon millions of Muslims would do anything to listen to his blessed words. It is inconceivable for us. Of course, there'd be many more human beings who'd be like, oh, weird. Why is this guy giving a sermon? Millions of people are traveling to Switzerland, to see him. And there's not a venue on earth that would be big enough to hold that Jummah. Not even Masjid al-Haram in Mecca. I mean, literally 30, 40, 50 million people would want to be there, would do anything to get there. And yet, the Quran itself, the most trusted source of Islam, makes it a point to tell us that one time, the only time, it doesn't mention any other gathering of the 10 years in Medina. It doesn't say anything about that Jummah khutbah experience other than this verse. It says people got up and walked out on it. Why? Because they wanted the dunya. They wanted entertainment. They wanted profit. They wanted business. They wanted to live their lives. Every single one of us that's in this room right now doesn't have to be here. Whoever you came from, however you got here, there's nobody in the United States of America that is forcing you to be here right now. You could be at a strip club. Seriously. You go to the the bar down the street and get a Heineken. Totally legal, totally acceptable. I mean, maybe it's a little weird to go to a strip club at 1 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. I don't know, what type of people that do that, but I'm assuming that's even a weird thing, but it's still legal, my point. But you, out of your own free will and the freedom that God has created you in, have chosen to be here, to listen to me, a total joker. It's kind of, when you think about it in the grand perspective, it's kind of insane that I'm the one giving the khutbah at this moment in time. But the reality is that we, as the verse of Quran that we so often recite, Surah Al-Asr says, Tawasaw bil haqqi wa tawasaw bis sabr. We actually need each other to continue to grow. Even if we never see each other again, we needed each other right now. And I have the onerous burden of having to speak the words and lead the prayer. And may God cover over my manifest imperfections with his perfection. But we come here not out of a raw sense of, I gotta do it, in the sense of I gotta go to work. Because the reality is, you will experience immediate, palpable, cause and effect relationship of harm if you don't go to work randomly one day. Right? I've learned from growing up, or not growing up, immersing myself in an immigrant family, this whole doctors and engineers thing. And I assume everyone's familiar with it, parents, and it's you have two options in life, doctor, engineer. And if you don't, you're a loser. And it's a very real thing. And I was a chaplain for 6 years at two different universities and worked at other universities in different capacities. And it really does a number on young Pakistanis and Iranians and Egyptians and Moroccans. It doesn't really matter where you're from. It's the same kind of struggle. Some of them can embrace it and can embody it, but others really buckle under that weight of expectation. But the idea is that, if you don't perform, you're going to get punished in some way. You're going to get an immediate reaction. You're going to get fired. You're going to lose social status. No one's going to want to marry you. Whatever thing you fear. But I would assume that none of us came to the Salat al-Jummah out of that raw fear. None of us came to the Salat al-Jummah out of feeling like God was just waiting to punish us, waiting to bring about some sort of cause and effect, you miss Jummah, bam, you get cancer. Whatever, some sort of crazy fear of God. No, Now, I can imagine in different social settings, alhamdulillah, I've had the opportunity to travel to many different Muslim majority countries. I can imagine in many of those environments that many people do go to Jummah out of a sense of fear. You have to do it. And if you don't do it, what will the neighbors say? And you're going to be a munafiq, you're going to be a hypocrite, and all these things. I mean, that's just not my world. It's not my life. I don't have to be here, right? But I choose to be here because I'm looking for something more. We can imagine that more in various ways. We can imagine that more in very tangible ways. You prefer the life of this world, but the next life is better and more lasting. The whole doctors and engineers thing is rooted in the idea of the stability of those professions to provide you with a decent life for 30, 40 years. If you get, for example, I'll give you a specific example, Jordan. Spend some time in Jordan. In Jordan, they have a national exam. As one of my Jordanians teacher told me, on the day you get the results, there are people that are elated and there are people that are just crying their eyes out. Why? Because it determines their possibilities in life. If they score high on the exam, doctor, engineer, low on the exam, humanities, Islamic studies, Kulliyat Sharia, faculty of Sharia, whatever. Maybe end up, somewhere else. So the people who want and struggle and strive for the doctor and engineering position do so because of the belief, the trust, the hope that their efforts are going to be rewarded in real, powerful, and tangible ways. That for 30, 40, 50 years, they're going to have some sort of honor and social status. They're going to have a chance of immigration to America, right? They're going to have a steady income. They can all provide for their family, for their extended family at home. If they do immigrate to Finland or the UK or America or Canada or Australia, or whatever the case may be, that they will be seen as somebody by their peers. He's the one who made it. I have one uncle who's very close to me. I love him for the sake of Allah. His brother is literally a farmer in a village in Pakistan, and he himself was a Silicon Valley engineer. Elon Musk slept on his couch 20 years ago, 25 years ago, when he was, making his way where he made it. And yet he goes back and he visits his brother in some village in Punjab, like that's the reality of the doctor and engineer paradigm. But it signifies something deeper. Allah does not create this reality and these cause and effect relationships without there being a meaning. As it says in the Quran, أَلَمْ تَرَوْا أَنَّ اللَّهَ سَخَّرَ لَكُم مَّا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَأَسْبَغَ عَلَيْكُمْ نِعَمَهُ ظَاهِرَةً وَبَاطِنَةً. Do you not see that Allah has disposed for you whatever there is in the heavens and whatever there is in the earth, and He has showered upon you His blessings, the outward and the inward? Allah has manifested this reality. Yes, humans can create systems, that are fallible and can be changed, but there are certain fundamental aspects of the qadr. Every single one of us has had now, in a way that people 200 years ago never had. You can close your eyes right now and you can see the planet Earth from space. You can imagine it because of some Netflix documentary you saw, some picture you saw on TV. You can step back from the day-to-day reality that we have, where we're all enmeshed in this buying and selling and struggling and studying and work and marriage and friends and fights and nations and all that stuff. And you can zoom out into space in your imagination and you can see that Allah, everything that has ever happened, everything that we think has mattered, everything, every struggle, every hope, every fear, every elation has all happened on this one little thing floating in space. That when you zoom out far enough, you literally can't see any of us. We're not even ants. We're not even ants. We're like amoebas. We're things you can't even see. And so Allah has made us and made the planet and has brought about a system and a reality that we all have to confront, what we might call the human condition. So that person struggling and striving for that safety and that stability and that honor, they do so because of a trust and a hope and a belief that their efforts are going to be rewarded. And some of the most challenging and frustrating experiences that we see taking place in the world are in situations where people are trapped in a situation where that can't be true. That no matter how smart you are, you can't achieve anything. No matter how motivated you are, you can't achieve anything. No matter what your hope and dream is, you'll never get it because the system will crush you. Okay? And that's a real thing. The mustada'afun, the truly oppressed people of this earth. And if you don't know it, go learn about the Rohingya people. Go learn about what they've been going through since 1981. And you'll see it before your very eyes. But there's a relationship. What I'm trying to get is, why do we come to Jummah? There's a relationship between what we do for Allah. However we conceive of it, but I'm assuming that we came here for Allah, not to get a wife or a husband, not to make some money today. I don't think those things are available here right now. But there's a relationship between what we do for the sake of Allah and the other things we do in our life, if you will, the deen and the dunya, the secular and the religious, right? And it is brought out in an amazing way, in a stunning way, in words that were written in the 60s or 70s by an Iranian scholar named Murtada Mutahiri. He says, a faithful man is optimistic about the world, life, and the creation. Religious belief gives a particular shape to man's attitude towards the world. As religion maintains that creation has a goal, and that its goal is nothing but betterment and evolution, naturally, religious belief affects the outlook of man and makes him optimistic about the system of the universe and the laws governing it. The attitude of a faithful man to the universe, and obviously he also means women here, the attitude of a faithful man to the universe is similar to the attitude of a man living in a country about which he is sure that its systems, laws, and formations are just and fair, which those who are at the helm of its affairs are sincere and well-intentioned, and that in it opportunities of making advancement are available to everyone, including himself. Such a person will naturally maintain that the only thing which may keep him or anyone else back is the lethargy and inexperience of themselves, and that they and all others owe a responsibility and are required to do their duty. A faithful person in this sort of situation will hold himself responsible for his backwardness and will not blame his country and its administration for that. He believes that if there's anything wrong, which is because he and others like him have failed to discharge their duty properly. This feeling will naturally arouse his sense of self-respect and impel him to move forward hopefully. In contrast, a disbeliever is in this universe like a man living in a country about which he believes that its systems, laws, and formations are unjust and corrupt, and that he has to accept them against his will. The heart of such a man will always be full of malice. He will never think of improving himself. He will think that where everything is wrong, his own uprightness will be of no use at all. So to reiterate in my own words what Murtada Mutahiri is saying in his book, Man and Universe, when we listen to the political conversation about this entire earth, every single nation in the United Nations, every piece of land that has been carved up and has a history going back hundreds and hundreds of years of peoples who have fought and created borders and created systems and educational systems and legislatures and all this. Every time we hear that and we hear about hope and living a better life, or whether this system or that system is better, what Murtada Mutahiri is reminding us is that all of that is a a reflection of our own deep-seated need to believe that God has created this earth in justice and fairness, and that we can actually achieve whatever levels of perfection and potential that we have, no matter where and how we find ourselves on this planet Earth. Right? Now, that is not to, just to be very clear, that is not to say that there aren't mustad'afun, that there aren't people that are totally under oppression. The Quran speaks very evocatively about the necessity of believers coming to their aid, right? But what it means is that the attitude that we see as a secular attitude towards living the best life possible, freedom, fairness, freedom of speech, freedom of protest. You can become a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, a filmmaker, a novelist. You can marry this person, marry that person. You can have your best life ever, is the phrase is kind of seems to be the common phrase these days. Best life ever. You can have your best life ever because Allah is the administrator of this whole reality. But you have to want it and you have to work for it. You can't be like the people around the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam who at that Salatul Jummah got up and walked out. Right? Now I'm not saying you can walk out of me. That's okay. I'm not the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If you don't like what I'm saying, and you're like, hey, I'm going to find Allah closest to Allah elsewhere, ahlan wa sahlan, I won't be hurt. I'll ask your forgiveness for giving such a bad khutbah. Because I've had to sit through so many bad khutbahs over the last 25 years myself. So that's not my intention. My intention is to say that if Jummah is that dream that you have, if Jummah is that dream that you have of the best life ever, then keep coming back. If the masjid is that dream of your best life ever, keep coming back. If living in California is a dream of the best life ever, embrace it. God is the ruler, Malik al-Mulk, over the United States of America, over the European Union, over the People's Republic of China, over the Republic of India, which are the four most dominant nation states on this planet Earth currently. Allah is Malik al-Mulk. Allah is one day come into existence, one day we'll all be gone. Hopefully not through some sort of conflagration that can be avoided. And those things determine our lives. They determine the taxes that you have to pay, what is yours and what belongs to the government. They determine how your kids are going to be educated. They determine so many things that have real and palpable impact. And we have to face that kind of more purely secular reality as well. But then we have to move beyond that to see the sacred in the secular, right? To see Allah's hand working in our lives and embrace the fact that if we need to get up and go somewhere else for the sake of Allah, then that's exactly what we need to do. You know, as a convert to Islam, and I think many other converts have had this experience, you often wonder, do I have to make hijrah? Do I have to, like the Prophet himself, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, do I have to leave my country, leave my homeland, leave everything I've known for the sake of Allah and move somewhere else? And I will tell you that every time I visited a Muslim majority country or visited, a large Muslim community such as India that, was a Muslim minority but far more developed than our community here, longer history, I asked myself, should I come to this place? Is this where Allah wants me to be? I'm a member, I'm a global citizen of the Ummah. And I'm a white guy, so it's easier to get in the door. Just speaking truthfully. So, what do I do? I won't talk too much about it, but I resolved that question over the years, and I said, as far as I've never met a single Muslim, other than Native American Muslims, that came here before me, my family, 1630 from England. So if my family was the first to come, I gotta be the last to leave. And this was back after 9/11, when it was a lot more difficult for our community. Charities were being closed down, mosques were being sort of attacked in different ways. The idea of could you be like an American and a Muslim was really up for discussion. So this was back then. It's not that way right now. Alhamdulillah, it's gotten better. But I have friends that have made hijrah. My Quran teacher lives in Mecca now. There are people that my age, white converts, that died in drone strikes, somewhere on the other side of Earth because they decided to join the other team, so to speak, back then. They chose differently than what I chose, right? But I choose to be here, not because I know that this is the best place for everybody, but I choose to be here because it's the best place for me, where Allah wants me to try and live according to the prophetic standard. And the reality is that when we look at our spiritual tradition, there's this whole idea about how spirituality is asking yourself, do you be silent or do you speak? Do you move or do you stand still? Because at the end of the day, that's really all we have. My father-in-law died of Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS. I never met him, rahmatullahi alayhi. And one of my close friends died of Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS. May Allah have mercy on him. And so I've literally known that Allah can just make you unable to move. It's a real thing. For whatever wisdom that He knows. You can have a mind and have a will and have an intention and have a hope and just be like this, without the ability to speak. And then eventually you will die. And that's the fate of all of us. But for these 60, 70, 80 years, when we have an intellect that's more developed, and we have a body that's healthy, we can travel this earth, we can make choices, we can go to Jummah or not go to Jummah. We're free. And this verse that I recited before, He made this earth for us to travel in, to experience it. And it's beautiful and it's wonderful and it calls to us. And it's also a reflection of a place that is better and more lasting. And so when we come to Salat al-Jummah, however much we may be struggling in our faith, it's an expression of that hope and that belief that there's actually something better and more lasting than a good career for 40, 50, 60 years, and some level of social honor, some level of freedom of speech, some level of dignity. Now, all those things are valuable, right? But the point is that Islam teaches us that that's not the ghaya, that is not the end, the telos of human reality, right? It is not that I just came back from Finland, a very nice place to live, mashallah. Not that if every country on earth is like Finland, we finish the job. Everyone's got healthcare, good education, safety. All those things are the ni'am that this verse is talking about. All those things are the zahir of the ni'am, the outward of blessings, right? But your faith, your inward blessing, the batin of ni'am that brought you here today, that is far more valuable than universal health care. That is far more valuable than a great public education system. That is far more valuable than the freedom to decide whether you want to be in a heavy metal band or become prime minister, right? Because Allah has made this dunya a very small place. I just watched a video on YouTube, and it still blows my mind. And you may know Drew Binsky. He's a travel blogger. And he had a video that said, now that I've visited all the countries on earth, here are my 5 least favorites. I thought that is like the most quintessential 2020s cultural product right there. The earth as a thing to be consumed, rated, and put on YouTube. But that is a symbol of the times that we're living in. And our world is only going to get smaller. As much as we talk about it being multipolar, it is only getting smaller. And we're only getting more close to each other. But as we all know, some of the most vicious fights are in families, when you're all trapped in the same house together. Who gets to watch the TV? Who gets the dessert amongst kids? Like, I want that one now. Right? That's what the earth is going to be like in the 21st century. That's my river. That's my land. That's my Donbass. So be prepared, right? Be prepared. And recognize that you're all free. Not free to do whatever you want without restriction. One person asked Imam Ali alayhi salam, he said, tell me what the qadr is. He said, raise your leg. You went like this. And now while you're keeping that one leg raised, raise the other leg. So yeah, I could jump up if I had good strong legs. I could jump up and do it for like a second. But then I'd be pulled back to earth by gravity. That's qadr. You can't do whatever you want. You're not going to live on Mars. Maybe they'll get like 5-6 people there for a year at the cost of $300 billion that could have been used to like sustain, 6 million people for a decade, right? Because it's all about opportunity cost. What do you spend your money on? So yeah, they could get some people to Mars, inshallah, in our lifetime, keep them alive at the cost of $300 billion, grow some plants in space. What does that achieve? Right? In that same time, those $300 billion could have been spent sustaining and developing the lives of people that have nothing. So what we choose to do is not something that Allah imposes upon us. My life, the life that I lived for 25 years as a Muslim, shows 2 unavoidable things. I'll finish with this. The jahili of the Quran is not something that happened in the 7th century, in the 5th, 6th century. It is something that happens in the individual life of the person. I did not know what Quran was. I did not know who Muhammad was until sometime in my later teen years. That was jahiliyyah. I didn't know. I was in ignorance, right? And Allah brought the messenger to me. I mean, the whole history of the Ottoman Empire was completely irrelevant. I didn't know anything about that. And then someday this book comes across my desk, here's this Quran, here's the basic story of the life of the Prophet. Your jahiliyyah is over, right? And the 2, that the Meccan, some of the points that are made in the Meccan verses are unavoidable for people living in places like the United States of America, Canada, the UK, Finland, Australia, and other places like that. That like you are at the beginning of the journey. You just gotta build a masjid and come for Jummah and talk about what you're gonna do with your time and with your wealth. Jahadu bi amwalikum wa anfusikum, with your body. And you're just beginning. What is the percentage of Muslims in the United States of America? 1%? Sometimes Muslims talk as if like what they do actually matters. Like to the United States of America, we're nothing, man. Literally, every Muslim in America just made apostatized, became murtad. Tomorrow, literally would do nothing like to the larger socio-political reality. It wouldn't change the Republicans and the Democrats. It wouldn't change Amazon. I mean, it just means that less people buy books about Islam and Amazon, more books about Christianity and Buddhism, Richard Dawkins and stuff. Right? So we have to be real about where we're at. And just do what we can. Right? Because there are so many ways in which we just don't do anything. And that's fine, because we're free. But when Allah says, Jahidu ba'amwalikum wa anfusikum, what Murtada Mutahari was saying in that quote that I said, means you are free to do that as much as you want. You are free to do that as much as you want. And as you grow spiritually, you'll realize that. You'll realize that all of the struggles, all the things that you think were keeping you back, were mostly in your head. Mostly in your head. And so may Allah accept the efforts that we made, the sa'i, the walking we made to come here. as a reflection of our willingness to use what Allah has gave us, our own bodies and our time, to worship Allah and to reflect upon our lives. And as I said before, for those of you who weren't here when it began, we may never be together again on this earth. Most likely, the way things are, we may never, as a unique group of people, ever be together again on this planet Earth. But I hope and pray, as the person who was given the responsibility of leading this prayer, that Allah accepts it from each and every single one of us. And that just as, we talk about these hadith, for example, there was a person who did this small deed, and because of this small deed, they were given Jannah. And they were opened up to infinite possibilities and mercy and forgiveness and love and peace. I pray that that's what this Jummah is for us. Even though I don't even know half of your names, that I recognize that you're here for the same reason that I'm here, which is believing in Allah's promise, and that promise is real. And so may Allah grant it to us out of Allah's mercy, despite any sins we may have done, doubts we may have had, or struggles that we may feel we cannot overcome. Amen. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي علم بالقلم علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم وصلى الله على محمد وآله وسلم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. Oh Lord, please accept this from us. And please have mercy upon us, because without your mercy and acceptance, we would be lost. Ya Allah, I ask that everyone in this room that is gathered today, that all of their friends and their families and their loved ones and their colleagues and their neighbors, that they are all given good in this world and good in the hereafter and saved from the punishment of the fire. Ya Arhamar Rahimin. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. Ya Allah, I ask that you send your benefit down on this gathering, Ya Nafi'. I ask that you send your light down upon this gathering, Ya Nur. I ask that you send your hidayah, your guidance down upon this gathering, Ya Hadi, so that every single one of us that are gathered here are filled with that benefit, with that light, and with that guidance, and that we take it with us as we walk out here today and each go back to our individual lives and our families and our struggles. And we recognize that you were the watcher over all of us. You were the creator of all of us, and you brought us here together on this day for a purpose in its fullness only known to you and to be revealed to us in the weeks and months and years to come, and then for all time. يا أول يا آخر لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إني كنت من الظالمين وصل على محمد وآله الطاهرين آمين. اللهم صل على محمد الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أشهد أن